What is hidden within the true story of Noah's Ark beyond the simple narrative of a flood? Could the Ark represent more than just a large vessel built to shelter Noah and his family? Why would God choose such a monumental and specific construction to save his creation? And why does this story still echo through time? When we look at this ancient account, we're seeing something much greater than a powerful storm or an ark floating on the waters. This is an event that symbolizes the Creator's profound attempt to restore balance, protect life, and preserve the original order of creation. It's a journey that tests the faith and obedience of one man at a time when all hope seemed lost. It's the choice to trust, to move forward into the unknown, to build without fully understanding but to follow a higher command. As we follow this story, we'll explore details that are often overlooked, from the choice of materials for the ark to the deeper spiritual meanings of the flood. We'll discover how this story is full of hidden symbolism, parallels with other ancient cultures, and lessons that reach far beyond the surface. This is not just the story of a boat and a flood, it is a story of survival, faith, and renewal. Before the flood, the world was a society quite different from what we imagine today. It is described as an era where values were distorted and the original sense of spirituality was almost lost. Humanity had strayed from its higher purpose, immersed in behaviors that endangered the harmony and balance of creation. People engaged in practices that went against principles of respect and care for life, creating an environment where self-centeredness, corruption, and violence prevailed. In this setting, it was as if a dense fog of spiritual darkness hung over everyone, obscuring the light of goodness and justice. This was a society that, in some ways, had advanced technologically, but was deeply corrupted, disconnected from a path of righteousness and peace. Despite this apparent progress, people used their knowledge destructively, ignoring the consequences of their actions. Interestingly, accounts from various cultures across the known world echo a story similar to that of Noah, where a great flood emerges as a direct consequence of a civilization's moral and ethical downfall. Notable examples include the famous epic of Gilgamesh and the ancient Eridu Genesis. These narratives, along with other creation myths from the Mesopotamian region, Egypt, and even distant civilizations, carry a message of warning. Each of these stories contains elements of a great flood, a symbolic cleansing of what had become corrupted, as if there were a collective memory of this event transcending even the Bible itself. What's intriguing is that while these cultures recount something akin to the flood, it is in Noah that we find a unique character, described as righteous and blameless in a time of chaos. Noah was not merely another man of his era. He was a leader, someone who lived a life aligned with values of justice and truth, standing out for his faith and personal conduct in a society that had seemingly lost its way. He represented a steadfast commitment to what is right even when everyone around him chose a different path. His call to build such a colossal vessel, something that surely stirred suspicion and even scorn from many, reflected a far greater purpose. It was the very challenge of his time, to build something that seemed impossible, an act of obedience that went beyond human logic. Thus, Noah became a figure of contrast. While the civilization around him yielded to moral decay and self-destruction, he walked in the opposite direction, faithful to a higher purpose he may not have fully understood but accepted with trust. This calling was no ordinary act, it was an extraordinary mission, requiring courage and faith that surpassed any common understanding. Even in the face of criticism and misunderstanding, Noah remained steadfast, determined to fulfill the purpose for which he had been chosen, standing as a last hope in a world on the brink of an imminent end. The construction of the ark was a grand and symbolic feat, far beyond a simple vessel built to weather a storm. It had a detailed, functional design with ideal dimensions for stable flotation, essential for a large boat intended solely to support and preserve life, not for navigation. Its design, from the specific measurements to the materials chosen, revealed a deeper meaning beyond its immediate function. The instructions Noah received for its construction were not merely technical, they carried profound symbolism from the culture of that time. The ark's length, width, and height followed significant proportions that, according to ancient interpretations, reflected a kind of microcosm of the world, a symbolic recreation of creation. Each material used had representative value. For example, the cypress wood, known for its durability and longevity, symbolized a lasting and secure refuge for the life that would be preserved there. In this sense, the ark became a sign of protection and a new beginning, like a vessel of covenant. Another essential detail was the door. According to the biblical account, the Lord shut the door. God closed it from the outside. This detail often goes unnoticed, but his action was crucial for the survival of those on board. It prevented the pressure of the waters from breaking through the opening and flooding the vessel, a critical factor for safety during the event. In undertaking this construction, Noah faced unimaginable challenges: physical, emotional, and spiritual. Imagine the enormous task of building such a colossal structure at a time when advanced shipbuilding techniques were either unknown or at least not widely used, a feat typically undertaken by naval engineers but executed by a farmer. The innovation he introduced, driven by divine guidance, was unparalleled for his time. Every step, every detail required precise and total obedience. The years of work, the nearly solitary dedication, and the doubts that inevitably arose became trials in themselves, testing his determination and faith. Noah was not merely building an ark. With each plank and each nail, he was constructing a symbol of faith, trust, and perseverance, remaining faithful to his mission without seeing any concrete signs of the impending catastrophe. The weight of his decision did not go unnoticed by his contemporaries. The people around him watched with bewilderment and scorn as this man built a vessel in the midst of dry land, with no apparent sign that anything tragic was about to happen. Although there are no extensive details, many ancient records and some traditional interpretations suggest that Noah was a constant target of ridicule, mocked for his persistence in what seemed like a senseless endeavor. His warnings about the imminent flood were ignored, as were the subtle signs emerging in nature. This highlighted the contrast between the disbelief of a society entirely unaware of any notion of impending destruction and the deep faith of a man who followed divine direction, even when the whole world mocked. Thus, the ark was not merely a physical construction but a spiritual and cultural symbol that challenged the understanding of the people of his time. Beyond being a vessel capable of preserving life, it represented a break from the standards of the decaying society around him. It was the tangible manifestation of a promise of renewal, of a new beginning, and a preservation that transcended the limits of his era, foreshadowing, in a way, the values of care and protection that would later become more esteemed in humanity. By completing his work, Noah not only erected a monumental structure, he reaffirmed his trust in something greater, leaving a testament of faith that endures as one of the most inspiring and mysterious stories in history. As the flood approached, the ancient world was overtaken by a series of extraordinary events. Here, an important but lesser-known detail relates to God's call for Noah and his family to enter the ark. At first glance, this invitation might seem like someone on the outside ordering them in, but the original meaning of the text reveals that it was someone inside calling them to join him. It was the Lord inviting them from within the ark. In contrast, entire societies, caught in their daily routines and habits, failed to notice when something unusual began to unfold. Noah, the unique and contradictory man, had spent years constructing a gigantic vessel, incomprehensible to the eyes of that generation. Then, in what seemed like an irresistible call, animals of various species began to arrive. This was not a simple spontaneous gathering or a matter of chance, but a movement orchestrated by the Creator himself, guiding them to the ark. Driven by a higher force, mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians came in pairs. This silent, orderly gathering carried a powerful message. Divine authority reigned over all creation. But not all living creatures were called to this refuge. The instruction was for Noah to take only animals with the breath of life in their nostrils. Aquatic creatures and invertebrates were not included, as they had their own means of survival in the waters. The Bible also makes a clear distinction between clean and unclean animals, specifying that 7 pairs of clean animals would enter the ark, while only 1 pair of unclean animals would enter. At this point, 2 explanations arise regarding the determination of clean animals. One suggests they were intended for sacrifices to God, while another proposes they were for human consumption. Both clarify the command to bring 7 pairs, as otherwise, either purpose would lead to the extinction of the species chosen for these purposes. In His infinite wisdom, God also provided space and conditions for the few hundred animals that represented the basic kinds of creatures. Thus, a variety of current species could emerge from these groups, like wolves and dogs, which share a common ancestor. Likewise, it can be concluded that adult animals were not transported, only young ones, so they wouldn't require as much care and would consume less food. This is, in fact, how animals are transferred from their natural habitats to zoos. When the first signs of the flood appeared, Noah's family was already waiting, but nothing could prepare them for what was to come. An absolute silence preceded the chaos. Then, it happened. The fountains of the deep were broken up, as if the earth's depths were torn open, releasing subterranean waters with immense pressure and violence. Cyclonic winds devastated the landscape and torrential rains covered everything. Magma erupted from the peaks of smoking mountains, forming fiery clouds and sending gases and ash into the atmosphere. Large glowing rocks rained from the sky, hitting the ground with such force that uncontrollable earthquakes erupted. Tsunamis engulfed the land. The planet was in turmoil, drastically altering the balance of creation. The deafening sounds and the darkened sky signaled that this was far more than just a storm. Despair took hold of those outside the ark. At this moment, the emotional impact on Noah and his family was fierce. Family, friends, and neighbors cried out in agony and despair, sounds that, for those in the ark, were likely more piercing and distressing than nature's devastation. All outside the ark now understood, too late, that the warning had been true and consistently ignored. As the flood decimated everything, the ark floated upon the tumultuous waters, carrying life and hope. Inside, within wooden walls and surrounded by animals, Noah and his family faced the unknown. Before this catastrophe, the Creator had provided construction measurements, highlighting that its height should be 14 meters. Shortly afterward, Noah was instructed to build an upper, middle, and lower deck. Curiously, the biblical account later notes that the waters rose about 7 meters above the highest mountains, allowing the vessel to float freely. This shows that the ark's lower half was submerged. This was not by chance and is important for 2 reasons. The lower decks had no light and were very cold. In these conditions, the animals there entered a state of torpor, reducing their metabolic rate and heart rate, which caused them to hibernate. Thus, they required little food, produced minimal waste, and grew slowly. Consequently, the time on the ark was not even more arduous. Days passed, and the vastness of the waters surrounded them. It was a test of extreme faith and resilience, where, with each silent and seemingly endless day, their trust in the Lord was renewed. They knew that beyond those waters, a new beginning awaited, a world purified and prepared. Therefore, the flood was not merely an event of destruction, but a means of renewal, a purification of an era of corruption. The flood finally ceased, and when Noah and his family left the ark, they found a transformed world and a deep, almost supernatural silence. The earth, vast and renewed, breathed once again into the farthest corners, a new creation, stripped of all the corruption that once marked it. The air was fresh, and the soil bore the terrible scars of that great event, but there was a tangible peace. The first steps of Noah and his family on the newly revealed ground were a powerful symbol of restoration, a chance for a new relationship between humanity and creation. The world had been re-inaugurated, and they, as the new guardians, were tasked with cultivating and preserving it. Additionally, the rainbow appeared in the sky for the first time, vibrant and iridescent, a divine symbol of protection. More than a natural phenomenon, God established it as a sign of covenant. This visual covenant, the Creator's signature in the sky, assured that future rains would no longer be for judgment and that the world would never again be devastated by a flood. This colorful bow, arched like a shining bridge between heaven and earth, became a visual and permanent reminder of God's commitment to all creation. Whenever it appeared, it would serve as a reminder of a promise of hope, protection and mercy, a guarantee that, despite human errors, the cycle of destruction would not prevail. The story of Noah transcends eras, echoing as a profound testimony of unshakable faith and obedience. He embodies perseverance in the face of the unknown and absolute trust in God, values that surpass generations and continue to inspire us. His journey reminds us that even when we face moments of darkness or times of loss, there is always the possibility of renewal. The biblical narrative is not limited to past events, it speaks directly to each of us today. This account reveals the essence of human cycles, periods of decline followed by opportunities for a new beginning, always through the lens of the divine promise of hope. His legacy is more than a simple story, it is an invitation to reflect on our own lives and to seek purpose and meaning in something greater. Noah inspires those who yearn for a life of purpose and faith, showing that true success lies in holding firm to our principles even when the world around us falls apart. The ark is not only a symbol of physical salvation but a metaphor for our spiritual journey. It challenges us to consider our own inner ark, to view our life and our faith as an opportunity to walk toward the divine with integrity and courage. As we conclude this reflection, we are invited to open our minds and hearts to the covenant God made, which is not limited to Noah and his time but extends to all humanity, to each one of us, to you and me. As we end this journey with Noah, it is impossible not to feel the weight of a promise that echoes in every rainbow, an invitation to revisit our own path and examine the covenants we carry within. Noah shows us that even in the most turbulent waters, faith can be our ark, strengthening us and guiding us to a new beginning. May his story inspire us to build our own arks of hope, courage, and renewal, with the assurance that, in the end, the divine covenant always awaits us, a memorial that we are never alone in our search for purpose and our longing for redemption. The ark should not be seen merely as a vessel in a great flood, but as a channel of redemption for a world that tragically chose destruction. Before being an act of judgment, the flood was a means of salvation for those who chose to heed God's warning. Let us reflect, are we building our ark or ignoring the call to eternal life? The invitation remains, but time, it doesn't wait.